Welcome to the Deal Desk. This is where Workday sellers pull back the curtain on the moments that made the deal, broke the deal, and changed how they sell. Real stories, real lessons, straight from the field. Hi, everyone. Ashley Walls from the talent marketing team and host of the Deal Desk. So something that we had a little bit of fun with was replicating the feel of the Tiny Desk concert. And we thought, what better way to do that than to include tiny mics. So I'm going to cue in Shannon McGovern, who's joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Hey, Ashley. Thanks for having me. I am Shannon McGovern. I am a GVP of Healthcare here at Workday. I lead all of our healthcare practice across the United States, so supporting all of our existing customers and prospective customers across payer and provider. I am a couple months shy of 3 years here at Workday. It's in some ways gone incredibly quickly, and then in some ways I'm like, oh my gosh,
I know,
years.
3 years,
In quarters. I keep counting it in quarters because, this is my
obviously.
12th.
Wow. 12th quarter.
That's
So who's
right.
counting? Who's
Okay.
counting quarter? When I got to get to know Shannon ahead of this episode, we talked about her emerging career in sales. And it's one of those jobs where you just you just don't like say in university, oh, I want to be in sales. You don't
Right.
think about it. It's like someone tells you about it. And you have a discovery story. Take it all the way back. Tell us how you got into sales and talk about your journey to Workday.
So it's a really good question, Ashley, and it's kind of a funny story. So I think I've been selling since I was a child. And then all the things I did to put myself through college, like, to buy the things I want to buy, and to basically graduate and leave home and have fully supported myself ever since. All like a lot of that was all selling stuff too. I was like a server at a restaurant. I worked at Nordstrom on the floor. Like there, it was like in my blood. My mom was in sales for her whole career. She worked in pharmaceutical sales. And my parents were like, you are totally going into sales. And I wrote them this huge letter when I graduated college, like, no, I'm into the creative. I'm going to do graphic design. Like this is, sales is not my passion. And I tried that. And then I went abroad and had a really great time working, but also, yeah, backpacking around Europe. It was incredible. And finally, my parents called me and were like, you have to come home. I literally don't know what you're doing. You're flailing. I was like, I'm actually living my best life right now, but I'm broke too. So like, okay. So
Fair.
I moved in with my aunt and uncle in San Francisco. I didn't know anyone there besides them. I had no opportunities and no network. I went and got a job at a local fine dining restaurant to be able to support myself while I was like dusting off the resume. And one night, the VP of sales of this tech company that I never heard of came in with all of his leaders. And by the end, he said, you need to come work for me. And I was like, I don't. What do you do? He was an incredible sales guy, and he sold me on the fact that I was going to make so much money in sales that I was like, I'm in. And here we are, 20 plus years later, turns out. And then I was crushing it in my first role, and I made it to club. And my mom sent me this letter that I'd written them back to me, basically being like, remember that time you said you weren't going to be in sales?
Do you have it? Do you still have the letter?
It's somewhere. It is somewhere. It was too long to frame. It was a multi-pager, but like she, she was like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
I love that she saved it. And there is something to be said now being a mom of like, your mom does know you pretty well, despite what you think.
Mhm.
Mothers do know quite best and they know their children. So she knew deep down, like, Shannon's meant for sales. She's going to
She
crush
loves
it.
the hunt and
Loves
like
the
the
hunt.
chase and then like the clothes, all those things. So
All right. So we've made it to Workday. And as I interview workmates, that you hear across the board is going back to our core values and how those show up in everything we do. And it really is something that we prioritize. So let's talk about that. There's that integrity line, and that one comes up a lot. And I've heard that with quite a few interviews from sellers. I mean, I've interviewed, gosh, probably a couple dozen sellers across different verticals, and they've always all had an example about integrity being at the forefront of either a deal or everything they do. So let's discuss it. Like, there's always a faster path, right? You can always beeline it. You can take shortcuts. I was just talking about this with someone last night actually, but then there's always the right path. That's not necessarily the faster path. Do you have an example that comes to mind of a deal where you've had to make a tough call, but really prove that integrity paid off?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a ton of examples of that, and I think doing the right thing when no one is watching is kinda like what integrity is all about, and I think, for me, it's also, like, setting up the right deals for the company, which is, like, salespeople, and we've all been there, are maximizing their comp plans, and that's great. But ultimately, we need to do good business for Workday, and that long game is gonna be so much more important, especially since we're all kinda shareholders as well. So, you sometimes you gonna have to pause and say to someone like, "Hey, this maybe isn't the right structure or deal or doesn't quite make sense, right? So let's go back and think about this both in the lens of the customer and in the company." In addition to integrity, which is super important, I think the reason why I came to Workday was because I grew up at a company that lived and breathes its core values. And then I went to a company that didn't have any, or at least that weren't notably touted by every employee, right? And it made a difference. Like I felt it every day, and the culture and who we were and how we supported our customers, right? Like, and learned a lot about what I found to be most fulfilling and where I was most engaged, and having a company that I could stand up and be proud of, and that I believe in, and that I can go share with our customers who we are and all the different ways that we show up every single day. Like, that makes a difference. And by the way, that's like why we're winning deals against the competition out in the field. So it is incredibly important. Employees obviously being number one, then we've got customers, profitability, innovation, integrity. But fun is like a core value of mine as well. And I think life is short. And if I'm not having fun, if my team isn't having fun, if my kids aren't having fun, right? Like, the days are long. The
Yeah.
quarters can feel brutal. Like, you have to incorporate that. And I love being at a place that embraces it and has made it part of who they are. And so it shows up in the way we engage with our customers and go out and do events with them, and shows up at Rising, right? It shows, it's like, that's what life is all about, right? And you gotta, like, work hard, but play hard and have fun too. And I think that also keeps your teams engaged. And when you get to know people outside the office and who they are and what motivates them and what they care about, you build like those deeper bonds and relationships, and it becomes less about work, and you're really truly collaborating, um and you find joy in their success.
Yeah, those relationships do really matter, and you're right. I think even things like slacking someone when you know them at a deeper level, it's like their tone can be misconstrued, but when you know them, it's like, "Oh, I get why they're saying that," or, if you're on a Zoom call and they approach something a certain way, it's like you just understand them to their core, and, we spend more time with our coworkers than we do our families a lot of the time, and so it helps if you're gonna have fun, and talking about that, I mean, this is the long game. Enterprise deals, they're marathons, they're not sprints. You can have a 9+ month long sales cycle and have to kind of keep yourself together, keep yourself motivated, and build on that momentum. So do you have an example of maybe a deal that had a very long cycle, and maybe one that was kind of like down to the wire where it was so long, but it ended up turning around in your favor? And how do you think about that, and how Workday strategically supports you through things like those long sales cycles when you're kind of on the cusp and we're competing against maybe another competitor?
I think the interesting thing about Workday is that we still bifurcate the business in, like, supporting existing customers and then going after and chasing net new pursuits. A lot of companies don't do that. I think it's a bit of the secret sauce here, and the passion and pride that our net new sellers take um like, acquiring a new logo is incredible, right? I'm so impressed with the work that they do every day, and it's hard work. It's hard work to support our existing customers as well, but, like, to your point, these cycles can be 12, 18, 24 months long. I mean, we just closed a deal that I swear it was forecasted to close the first quarter I started at Workday, and we just closed it last quarter. So I'm almost 3 years in, right? Like, it was a roller coaster with acquisitions and merging of companies and resetting the evaluation and restarting and doing more demos. And so, like, I think the cool thing about the people here is they love what they do and they believe in what we do. I also think being in a mission driven industry like healthcare, people have to like really kind of feel it and know what they're doing, and the work that we're doing in these evaluations make a real difference. I mean, supply chain and getting supplies into the OR, like that's life or death type stuff. It's really important. So while the cycles can be long, they're also highly rewarding. I mean, to close a $50 million TCV deal for the company, like that's incredibly rewarding. So, I think you keep people motivated by recognizing the good work that they're doing. I think you lift them up, and acknowledge the hard things that happen, the going on the drops where you're like prospecting and dropping Workday swag at a prospective customer well before a cycle ever starts. Like that's the heart hustle and hunger that we're looking for. And so I think you have to recognize all the little efforts that lead up and into it. And then you have to be a great workmate to get any of these over the line, because it takes, to your point, of a village. It literally takes 15 different cross-functional teams to successfully execute on one of these cycles. And it can get stressful and it can get hard and it can go to the wire. Speaking about the wire, and like last quarter, we were closing deals until 12:45 a.m. Eastern time on Halloween. It's my favorite holiday almost. And I usually get really into it. And I barely got to trick or treat with the kids. We were like in legal negotiations until the very, very end. And we closed at 10:20, 12:05, and 12:34 a.m. Like huge deals that made a difference in getting to the number or not getting to the number. Like I was in bed, like basically like waking up, checking whether they signed the paperwork. It was one of those. So in some ways you're like, that's fun. In other ways, I'm like, I may die before we close this year. Like, I don't know if I can make it, but it was so fun. Like the text threads of those teams as we were just trying to get to the final mile. Like those are moments that will go down in history, I think, for some of these account executives that are working on these like career changing opportunities.
You know what? When you're talking about that, the emphasis is on the journey that it took to close the deal. Like
Yeah.
the reward, yes, is that the deal closed, but like when you're telling me, you're telling the listeners, it's look at the journey it took to get here, and you do get to have those moments and then look back with your team and be like, "Oh, yes, we did. We were down to the wire. We were up until almost 1 o'clock in the morning, but look at what we did." And then looking at year end and saying, "This we did together." It is incredibly fulfilling to
I mean,
know that
those
you're
are
able
the
to do
war
that.
stories. Like those are the ones that in the moment feel kind of painful, but then you look back on it and they're like, kind of how you get to where you are and what you like look back on with like such fondness over the course of your career. Like I can, to your point about like some of these deals, there's ones that you'll just like never forget those moments, whether you were the seller, whether you were the first line leader helping someone bring their first deal across, whether it was like as a region in a second line leadership role and the whole team gets their number because of this one smaller deal that someone pulled forward. It's like all those moments and stories, and how it's like truly a team sport is, I think, what keeps me going.
Yeah. Do you find that Workday is different in that way with it being a team sport? Um I think everywhere it's kind of all hands on deck if there is a big deal at stake and you want to get it closed. But is it different at Workday? And if so, how?
And people talk about the culture here all the time. And I mean, it's a real thing. It's like a living, breathing thing that um, everyone, I think, encompasses and gets the benefit of, assuming they're contributing in a meaningful, way to that culture. And I think I've been fortunate enough that when I started my career and it really began to take off, I was in a company that prioritized culture and sales. And I had a ton of fun kind of growing up in this industry. I then went and had an experience that was rewarding in a very different way, but like the culture, the core values I mentioned, the born in the cloud, that wasn't the story of kind of the company in between. So coming back and being in the role that I'm in now, leading this business for the country, I think the people that we hire, who we have on the team, the attitude that they bring and how they contribute to that culture helps us really truly support our customers in a different way, which allows us to, win the business of more customers and close more market share. So when I say core values and culture are absolutely part of the differentiators as it pertains to why our customers choose to work with Workday, like it's true. And I've seen it in these cycles, right? And so I think it is different. And if you go to certain startups or you go to bigger companies, the core values and the culture aren't at the center of everything that those organizations do. And they may have great things and they may be great companies, but it's just a totally different feel, right? And so I think for me, coming here was like coming home. I've just found it to be like so rewarding to be a part of that and know that no matter where I go next, those are really important factors as you make a decision. Because when
Coming
you've
here is like
experienced having it and not having it, you can tell the difference.
oh, absolutely. I think I always joke that the everyone who's early in career at Workday who started here, I'm like, "Oh, you are so lucky. You have no idea what it's like
And
on the other
sometimes it
side."
takes, like, going to see that the grass isn't always greener, you know? Leaving and going and having an experience somewhere else in order to realize that the grass is not, in fact, always greener in other places, right? And I saw that a lot. I used to take it really personally when I was earlier in my career as a leader when someone would leave and go do something different, and now I'm sort of like, "That's okay." Sometimes you need that experience, right? And that's part of growing and maturing and I've seen some great people come back. I rehired someone on our team 2 years ago, who had been with Workday, helped to build up this practice that I'm in, left to go do something else, got a lot of great experience and exposure outside of the company that they were able to bring back in, and then have since come, crushed it, got promoted into a bigger role. It's been like an amazing success story. So I think, yeah, everyone's got their path.
Everyone's got their path and they'll end up where they're supposed to be, and hopefully for the right people who are centered around our core values, they end up at Workday as a workmate alongside us.
Or bring those values and ethics and things to other organizations and share the love.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a lovely conversation, and it's the end of episode 1 of The Deal Desk.
Thanks, Ashley. Go get 'em.
Woo!